Upstate Medical University in Syracuse, New York, invites you to be the informed patient with the podcast that features experts from Central New York's only academic medical center. I'm your host, Amber Smith. As the weather turns warmer in Central New York and we start spending more time outdoors, we start thinking about ticks. Today, I'm talking with an expert in vector-borne diseases. Dr. Saravanan Thangamani is a SUNY Empire Innovation professor in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology at Upstate, and he directs the SUNY Center for Environmental Health and Medicine. Welcome back to The Informed Patient, Dr. Thangamani.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to meet again and then share some information about the ticks and tick prevention and what my lab is doing to help the public, to educate the public not to have tick bites.
Now, your website at nyticks.org provides a lot of data about ticks in New York State. You've found 14 species of ticks here so far, is that right?
Yes, that's right. So 14 species of ticks. Humans are encountering those ticks. These are not the ticks that we collected from the field. These are the ticks that humans actually have encountered. So those are epidemiologically relevant.
And they've sent them into your lab. That's how you've discovered them.
Yes, exactly. So we run the citizen science program where when someone encounters a tick, they actually send the tick to the lab. We have instruction posted on nyticks.org website. And as soon as the ticks are received in the lab, we surface decontaminate the lab. We identify the tick species under a microscope. And then we have a proprietary tick pathogen assay that we perform on each tick. And then we send the results back to the tick submitter. And then the data that we use, we actually develop a dashboard, also called as tick map. That's what you can see in nyticks.org, where any public can actually use the dashboard to find what kind of tick species are emerging in their own county, what kind of tick-borne pathogens are actually emerging in their own county as well. So it's a very useful interactive tool to understand what is really happening in their own neighborhoods.
So if someone finds a tick on themselves or their dog, they can go to nyticks.org and learn how to send it in. What is the cost to have it analyzed?
So beginning this year, we have a 3-tier system for testing the ticks. The first one is Lyme disease causing agent test, which is like about $10 for Onondaga County residents. And the second tier is the basic test, which covers Borrelia burgdorferi, the Lyme disease agent, Anaplasma, and Babesia. The Anaplasma, Babesia, and Lyme, those are the 3 primary tick-borne pathogens that cause human illnesses in New York State. So we kind of divided that as a priority. And the third tier is comprehensive. As the name suggests, it tests 16 different tick-borne pathogens. So these 3 tiers have different pricing structure. And for the residents of Onondaga County, we are providing tick testing as low as $10 per tick.
And you have instructions on there about how to send them in. There's also a form that you have to print out. And can you talk us through what type of information is needed on the form?
So when someone goes to our tick submission page, it opens up a questionnaire. That's where they will be providing information on when they encounter the tick, where they encounter the tick, and they will provide information like location and also email ID, because that's the only way we communicate with the tick submitters, with an email ID. Also, the result of the tick testing assay will be sent to that email. And as soon as they complete that form, which will probably take about 2 minutes to complete, and then once they submit that form to us, we then provide a unique tick ID. So each tick is provided a unique tick ID, and the submitter then sends the tick back to the lab in a small Ziploc bag with a moist tissue paper and write the tick ID on top of it and then send it in an envelope. And I recommend them to write the tick ID on the envelope as well, so we can make sure that we do not miss the tick ID, because that's the only connection for us to the submitter, and also correctly identify what tick is being submitted.
Now, which ticks are the most prevalent in New York State?
Deer ticks obviously are the most prevalent. However, there are 2 other species that are slowly emerging in central New York, I should say. That is the Lone Star tick and the dog tick. But generally, throughout New York State, deer ticks is the highly prevalent ticks.
And deer ticks are known for carrying the
Lyme. Yeah,
Lyme.
deer ticks are known
Okay.
to carry the most obvious pathogens, the Lyme disease, Borrelia burgdorferi agent. In addition to that, it also transmits agents that cause anaplasmosis, babesiosis, ehrlichiosis, and Powassan encephalitis. So deer tick can transmit multiple disease-causing agents from a single bite.
Now, what about the Lone Star tick? What does that carry typically?
So Lone Star ticks carry Ehrlichia, causes ehrlichiosis, and also transmit two viruses called the Heartland virus and Bourbon virus. They cause acute febrile illness, and in immunocompromised patients, it can be fatal as well. It's very rare, but it can be fatal as well. In addition to that, it causes meat allergy, allergic to a particular carbohydrate in humans as well. So yes, they may not be transmitting as many tick-borne agents as deer ticks, but they are equally clinically relevant in actually causing human sickness.
And you mentioned the dog tick. Does that favor dogs?
Not necessarily. Maybe historically they found these ticks prefer to feed on the dogs. However, we now know that pets live within our close proximity. They tend to sleep in our beds. So humans are mostly like an accidental host, not the primary host, but they are accidental host. Ticks can transmit rickettsia that can cause Rocky Mountain spotted fever and rickettsiosis as well.
What percent of the ticks that come into your lab are carrying a pathogen?
I should say 38% of the ticks carry at least one disease-causing agent. And of 33 to 35% of them are the Lyme disease positive agent.
So about a third.
Carry the Lyme disease agent, unfortunately.
On your chart, on your website, why are the majority of the ticks that are sent in for testing female?
Well, I think it has to do with the ecology, and also the female ticks tend to feed on host for a longer period of times, like 5 to 7 days. Males tend to feed only for short duration. So humans may not notice that male ticks are feeding on them. That's one. And the size, female ticks are larger than the male ticks. So that's another thing. So the larger ticks is easy to notice on a human body and report it compared to the smaller ones. And also the primary purpose in nature, if you see the male-female ratio, there are more females, and primary is because it's how the perpetuation should happen, right? Females feed on mammalian blood, and they convert the blood proteins to lay thousands of eggs. Those thousands of eggs become thousands of larvae, right? So for its perpetuation, it needs more females. So that's the reason why there. So size, human encounter, and their aggressive behavior. Female ticks are more aggressive behavior because they need to find blood meal for their survival. Adult ticks, their primary role is to mate with the female. That's about it. They are not playing a major role in the ecology of the tick population. Those are many reasons, but these are the primary reason why we encounter more female ticks than male ticks.
This is Upstate's The Informed Patient Podcast. I'm your host, Amber Smith. I'm talking with Professor Saravanan Thangamani about ticks. Is spring when you start getting tick submissions, or do you get them year-round?
I do get the year around. However, the number spikes up during the spring and fall, followed by summer. In winter, we do get ticks in the lab for testing. However, the numbers are very low. Pets are tick magnets, actually. So humans may not be going out in winter. However, pets go to do their business in the backyard and other things. So when they are going around there, they try to lift up the litter. And that's where the ticks hide during the winter, right? They try to hide underneath the litter. So when the ticks latch onto the pets and the pets come in, that's how the humans actually get tick bites during the winter as well. And people do snow walking, people do hiking in the woods during winter, or the hunters. Those kind of encounters actually increases the chance of someone getting tick bites. As soon as the weather kind of thawed up a little bit, we started getting a flood of tick submissions. We have, within like 3 to 4 weeks, I would say, since the ground started to thaw up, 200 plus submissions. And it actually makes me speculate that more and more encounters will be happening between humans and ticks. And I attribute that to really cold winter, because we are like in the house for 3 months and suddenly it's, hey, I need to get out. This is a true winter, at least since I arrived at Upstate. This is the longest, really. We had snow for like 2 months on the ground. So I think it is more of a human behavior that actually makes it more prone to have tick encounters. All they need, as long as they find suitable host, they're going to go for it. So I don't think that impacts them at all. But definitely, I would say there will be a surge in the tick population if there is a wave of humans going outdoor activity after a long cold season, right? So that actually encounters more ticks. It's more of an artificial spike. Technically, it will happen over the year. It spreads out over the year. But because of this cold season, maybe there's a spike.
You're involved in quite a bit of research relating to vector-borne diseases. I'd like to ask you about the work you're doing on Lyme disease and what happens when someone is infected with another infection at the same time they're infected with Lyme. How common is that?
We do epidemiology research. We do the tick testing. That's the public-facing research, right? That helps the public on a daily basis. However, we do basic science research in our lab where we try to understand how a single tick bite delivers more than one pathogen. For example, the deer tick that transmits the Lyme disease agent also transmits Powassan virus. So in our lab, we try to understand what if a single tick transmits both the Lyme disease agent and the Powassan virus. How does it impact the clinical outcome in a small animal model? But then we will translate that to human clinical outcomes as well. So currently, one of my graduate students is investigating that. And maybe in a year or two, we will have a good understanding of the clinical consequence of co-infections, particularly between a virus and a spirochete bacterium that causes the Lyme disease. In addition to that, our lab is interested in developing anti-tick vaccine and also antivirus vaccines. So we have made good progress, and it's rather slow, I should say, because of the complexities involved in developing a vaccine against ticks and tick-borne viruses. But we have identified a few potential candidates that currently my lab is evaluating. So hopefully the next time I meet with you, I may be able to provide you additional information.
So at this time, we really don't know for sure whether if you have both infections, whether one is worsened by the other or if it complicates treatment or recovery, right? That's what we're trying to find out.
Exactly. We don't know. We don't know anything actually because it's a rare infection, and people, when they think about tick-borne disease, they often associate it with Lyme disease. However, there's other diseases, other co-infection that actually can worsen the clinical outcome, maybe worsen the clinical treatment process as well. They may not be responding because they have multiple agents in them. And also, we are only talking about a single human getting a single human disease, but there are a lot of comorbid conditions, diabetes, hypertension, other viral infections, right? Those are the things that we are trying to tease apart one at a time, but it's something that I'm interested to understand how diabetes can influence infections, tick-borne infection, and how obesity can influence tick-borne infections. So we have ideas, we have plans to work on, but we are trying to kind of prioritize based on what the federal government's funding.
Well, you mentioned also an anti-tick vaccine. Doesn't something like that exist for dogs at this point? Don't veterinarians have?
There is a
some sort
Lyme
of-
disease vaccine for dogs. However, there is no anti-tick vaccine thus far because ticks are very smart. They secrete a saliva that actually neutralize our human immune responses. So it's researchers, including us, we are trying our best to develop an anti-tick vaccine, but it is still a long way to go. Yes, there is a vaccine for dogs and cats, but it cannot be used on humans.
Well, before we wrap up, I'd like to ask you to give us some reminders about what's most important for people who want to avoid ticks when they're outdoors.
Springtime is always a time where humans would like to do outdoor activities. And then ticks are also waiting there to find a suitable host to feed on and get the blood and then perpetuate their life cycle. So it is very important that before going outdoors, where the risks are, know where the ticks are. So you can go to our nyticks.org, find out from our tick map where the ticks are, and then do appropriate precautions like spraying your body with the DEET-based chemicals or maybe eucalyptus or eco-friendly sprays. And also you can treat your outdoor wear with permethrin. You can go to CDC website. It will tell you what are the chemicals you can actually use to prepare your outdoor clothing in such a way that they repel the ticks, or when ticks come in contact with those chemicals, ticks die. And once you complete your outdoor activity, before you start to do your business at home, I would encourage everybody to do a tick check. First, take off their clothes and put it in the dryer for 10 minutes at a high temperature, and then do a tick check daily. If you're an avid gardener, if you're an avid outdoor activity person, you may have to do a daily tick check. And if you find a tick, it's easy. No need to panic. You can just pull the tick off, go to our website, send the tick to the lab. We'll send the results back in 2 days, and you can take the result to a clinical healthcare provider. And then you're giving additional information to the healthcare provider to make informed decision. So that's what I would say. Even if you get a tick bite, people don't need to get anxious about it. They can just pull the tick gently and then send it to the lab for testing. Our turnaround time is 2 days. So we try to get the results back to them as soon as possible so they can seek expedited healthcare solutions.
That's good to know. Well, thank you, Dr. Thangamani.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate talking to you about ticks and tick-borne disease program.
My guest has been Professor Saravanan Thangamani. He's a SUNY Empire Innovation professor in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology at Upstate, and he directs the SUNY Center for Environmental Health and Medicine. The Informed Patient is a podcast covering health, science, and medicine, brought to you by Upstate Medical University in Syracuse, New York, and produced by Jim Howe, with sound engineering by Bill Brokel and graphic design by Dan Cameron. Find our archive of previous episodes at upstate.edu/informed. If you enjoyed this episode, please invite a friend to listen. You can also rate and review the Informed Patient podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you tune in. This is your host, Amber Smith, thanking you for listening.